Eritrea to bomb, rape, murder, massacre, and annihilate the Tigray people. Of the 6 million innocent civilians in Tigray, over 90% of the population is in need of emergency humanitarian aid. There's no food, no water, no gas, no electricity. The people are being annihilated in complete darkness. We've been fighting for 9 months on the street, but we can't do it alone. We need our allies and our outside communities to speak up on our behalf. We united together in the 80s when our people were starving, and we need to do it together again. The people have no food, no water, no aid. They've completely blocked access to the region, and the government of Ethiopia and Eritrea have weaponized hunger and rape as a means to further their own political agenda. We need to unite together and use our voice to bring an end to this. We've done it for the last 9 months, and we can't let up. Who are we? Who are we? Who are we? What do we want? What do we want? What do we want? What do we want it?
I want justice!
I want justice!
I want peace!
I want peace!
We demand justice!
We demand justice!
We demand peace!
We demand peace!
Weaponized hunger is a crime!
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 Stop the war on Tigray!
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 Ethiopia's guilty of genocide!
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 Ethiopia is guilty of genocide. 721 days. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to believe. It's hard to fathom. It's hard to even wrap your mind around the fact that for 721 days, the government of Ethiopia has been actively participating in genocide, isolating a population of the nation away and putting them and steeping them in darkness simply because they are Tigrayan. Can you imagine that in the 21st century that there would be systemic rape, food being used as a weapon, starvation, no access to your own finances, communications? We already know how difficult it is to communicate on some of these lines, and just imagine that you weren't able to communicate with your family for over 2 years while the world would sit back and kind of ponder what's going on. Some kind of know what's going on. Some have no idea what's going on. Go ahead and share this. It's been 721 days of genocide. I'm with Mohammed Adwali. Mohammed, salam, my man.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah,
Well, I'm just
the
telling you.
merciful, the magnificent.
I could tell you 721 days. And you are familiar with the Somali community
Yes.
inside of Ethiopia, and it's very interesting. I want to, ask everybody, go ahead and share this, and don't worry if it buffers, if it buffs, if it does whatever, you just come back, because we're going to make sure that the world gets this information. We're keeping our eye on Tigray. We're going to make sure that we continue to be the voice of the voiceless. 721 days. Now, in the news, and we just wanted to stop by briefly to, I wanted to talk to you about some breaking news. Inside of Ethiopia, within the past 24 hours, there was a Somali parliament member who was shot to death
Yes.
inside of the airport
In Jijiga.
in Jijiga.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, before I even get started, I want to say rest in peace to Juweria.
Yeah. Sub'is.
Sabis.
Sub'is. Yeah. Juweria Muhammad Sub'is. Yes.
And I just want to begin this program by saying condolences to everyone, the Juma, the community, the family, everyone that is mourning the death of someone that, was shot to death by an Ethiopian federal police inside the airport. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today, because you're in touch, that's a part of your community, etc. Can you give us an update as it relates to what took place or what you know about this death?
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank you, and I would like to say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. The death of the member of parliament of Ethiopia, the federal government of Ethiopia, the parliament, the federal parliament. Nowadays, I don't know if it's still a parliament, but there was, as you said, a soldier of a federal police who they said, is one of the soldiers that guard the airport of Jigjiga, is the capital city of the state of the state of Somali. And not only the MP Juweria, but also there were 4 others, they said. But this particular killing, I think it was premeditated. It was assassination, because as I have been spoken to for the last 3 hours, some Somalis, even one of them gave me a phone number that I had to get in touch with Jigjiga. But those people, at least 2 of them, they are very afraid of saying anything. But obviously, this is an assassination. And the reason that they think it's an assassination is, number one, there was no any quarrel between her and this thugs. They say that he's a police officer or federal police. They were taking pictures at the airport. Some of them were leaving at the airport. Some of them, they were landing. They were coming in. So all of a sudden, he approached Juweria, and he shot her in the head, point blank. Yeah. But the rest, he shoot them. Some of them are wounded, they said, and 4 of them are critically wounded. But this is not, I don't believe this is, it was just a random killing, somebody who's crazy. I think, and she was a member of the party of Abiy, which they call PP.
The Prosperity Party.
Yes, Central Committee, they said. So, and also, one of them also told me that she was a very outspoken person. She spoke about the fate of Ethiopia, the reality of Ethiopia nowadays. So somehow, probably she has created enemies for herself. But this is no way that I will believe there was just a random killing or a shooting, somebody crazy went. But that's what they're trying to make it sound. The local government, they are a bunch of cowards. Those so-called Somali politicians, local politicians, from the beginning of Agjar, the so-called president of Somali state, those guys are cowards. You know what's so interesting, brother? Even that airport, Jigjiga, it's run by Amharas. Everything, the military, the custom, the administration, even the head of the airport, and this is supposed to be a federal government. But this is the only state in Ethiopia at the airport run by for instance, in Oromo state, their airport is run by Oromos under the federal status. So do Amhara state. But the Somali state, unfortunately, these people, this airport is run by Amharas. And this is something that I was shocked when I was told. Even I was listening one of the most vocal Somali voice who is abroad, and he has a very, very good contact. I was listening. A friend of mine sent me in Europe right now because I've been calling, everywhere. But this is a political killing. This thug, so-called prime minister, I don't even believe that he deserved to be called a prime minister. Look at what's happening. The other day, I responded his tweet. He was talking about the guy he's a baby. He's a big baby. He was I just had a phone call with the Prime Minister with Trudeau. I had a good conversation. And I said, did you tell him that you killed 700,000 Tigrays, 10,000 Somalis?
You know, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around what's taking place inside of the imperial state known as Ethiopia. For 721 days, there's been a genocide that is taking place, which has allowed individuals like myself to take a deeper look inside of what many of us in the diaspora thought was a panacea or a beacon of light or hope for those in the diaspora and for African people worldwide. But it's really interesting. The closer you look in, the more violence you see, the more hatred you see, the more starvation and genocide. All of this stuff is pretty much par for the course. You know, they've had over 27 years of trying to move away from that feudal, authoritarian monarchy and all of these different things. And they went into the Derg and the communism and all of those different things. However, I'm really attempting to understand what you are saying around the Somali region. There are those who wouldn't know what a Somali region is because they believe that Ethiopia is just one homogenous place of Ethiopians. Why? And so they would say that there are many that are probably thinking what happened in Somalia, when in fact, this is not in Somalia. This is Somalia inside of Ethiopia.
Yes.
Can you give a little history of why there's a Somalia inside of Ethiopia?
Yes, I'd be happy to. First of all, back in 1950s, it was never be part of Ethiopia, the Somali region. But in 1954, the British gave it to Haile Selassie as a gift. For whatever reason, maybe a geopolitical interest, maybe there was something they wanted to divide the Somalis in order to weaken any prosper of a nationhood that is on the way, because there were a young man called Somali League at that time who were very much vocal. There was a picture I remember I did send you. They were in New York with I think a civil right leaders back then. But that's how the region of Somalia ended up under Ethiopia. That's why they still under occupation. I don't even believe, or I don't even like to entertain myself that Somali region is part of the Ethiopian as you describe it.
Well, when you break this down, and for those of you who are just catching up, I really would like for you to wrap your mind around this. For 27 years, there are individuals inside of Ethiopia who are part of over 80 plus ethnic groupings, languages, etc. But for most of the 19th, early 20th century, individuals were not allowed. It was illegal to speak your language, to represent your culture,
even,
to have
70s.
Yeah, exactly. Up until recent times, you're seeing the explosion of individuals who are embracing their culture, their ethnic heritage, the way that they express themselves,
and languages.
Their languages.
Yeah.
All of that was suppressed under authoritarianism. Called, we can go back because Ethiopia as a so-called modern state that is very recent. However, via the scramble for Africa, you had, let's just talk about Somalia. You had the British Somalia, the French Somalia, the Italian Somalia. Yes. And so for those of you who are just catching up, all of this was split up between European powers. And when Mussolini joined Hitler in World War II, the Italian Somalia was taken. The British were in control, and they merged the Italian properties into what's known as Ethiopia, including what you all call Eritrea right now. So when you think about what we are talking about, there is a Somali parliament member that was killed. You believe it's an assassination.
I believe it's an assassination based on the local people, because they don't understand why would a soldier will grab his gun and shoot another human being. Even, let's say, hypothetically, he didn't even know she was a member of parliament.
Okay, so if you were to ascribe to the belief that this was a coincidence,
exactly,
which when you look at the political climate of Ethiopia, there's turmoil in every section. So coincidentally, killing a parliamentary member is highly unlikely. Highly
unlikely. And at the same time, what is between him and her? What will be the problem? They were taking pictures, her and friends. And they were standing there taking a picture, and he approached them, and they said, whatever they talked about, nobody knows, but somehow she told him, hey, we are just here basically taking picture. What seems to be the problem? And he grabbed the guy and his gun, and he shot her.
I mean, think about this. Okay, everybody who is watching this, and by the way, 721 days of genocide, we want to really get into this conversation. And if this is freezing up, and it is freezing up, and it's hard to get this information, just imagine that for 2 years, the Tigray community has not been able to communicate with their families. They have not had access to internet.
Absolutely.
They have not had phone communication. They have not had telecommunication. And so as we struggle to get this information out, we're going to continue to do it because we have to be a voice for the voiceless and talk about what is happening internationally and within what's called Ethiopia. Now we're talking about the Somali region, which you say, now listen, there's 10 regions inside of Ethiopia.
Yes.
And you have various ethnic groups able to have self-determination in part of a federation.
Yes.
Now you have the Tigray, they were the government of their community. You have the Oromo, government of their community. You can go to, the southern nations and all of those, the Amhara regions and all of these different regions. You're telling me that the Somali region is run by another ethnic group.
It's run by Amharas. Even the banks, the employees are Amharas, and the administration are Amharas. Even the guy was telling me he was in Jigjiga. I mean, a few hours ago, he told me even the custom are Amharas. They are not even Somalis. So what is then the reason that you call yourself autonomous state?
Well, I mean, and because we're laying the foundation for individuals who have been under this myth of Ethiopia, it's been a veiled history. And if you dig in, and you don't have to dig deep, you'll learn so much. Inside of Ethiopia, there are these various regions, 10 of these regions. We are talking about the Somali region, which is not run by Somalis.
No.
I mean, it's not run by, and there's a coincidental death of a prime minister. If you're listening,
MP.
this is equivalent to your congressional leadership.
Absolutely.
Was just killed in the airport.
Yes.
Like you're
Denver Airport.
You're in Denver International Airport, and your senator, Michael Bennett or John Hickenlooper just came through the airport, and a police officer kills your senator for whatever reason.
And no telling.
There's no reason. And for those of us who know about traveling locally and internationally, you can't get anywhere near an airplane with a weapon because you've gone through all of this security.
Yes.
You've gone through all of this taking off your shoes and putting up your bags and going through x-rays and all those different things. So a traveler is not a threat to a police officer who's running around with a weapon. This just shows that there is a continuous disrespect and disregard for the sanctity of human life.
They have no respect, especially this so-called prime minister. I think he has his finger on it. Because this guy, he wants to be a dictator. He wants to run Ethiopia or rule Ethiopia, as he even brag about it, the Iron Fist. And he believes that whoever say or voice their opinion other than his, your death sentence, it's going to be signed. How
is Ethiopia as we know it now? And then anybody, all you've got to do is follow basic history. Like you can look at basic European history, and you could think about the authoritarian time period where you had the kings that had the divine right of kings, and they did not have a regard for life or property.
No.
They could put your head on a post as a way of terrorizing, etc. And then they said they came into this constitutional way of being where you would have a social contract where, you know what, we will give power to the state to be able to arbitrate affairs so that we don't have individuals running around wanton killing one another. You know, they were building this society. And so now Ethiopia has a constitution on one hand where you've got parliamentary members, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, there's total disregard for what's in that constitution. There's a double standard.
Absolutely. He wants to reinstitute it. He wants to bring it back.
He wants to go back to the feudal period of absolute government, to where these individuals don't have a right.
And he wants to destroy the so-called federal today. He hates that. And this is a way to create a chaos and fear. And even this is what I will tell the Somalis. Earlier you asked me a question, what are the Somalis, what are they going to be doing? Well, first of all, I don't really think that those who are at the present time in the government, the local government, they're in a position even to say anything. Because they are feared to be killed.
There's fear, but in a totalitarian government, fear and force rule.
Yes, but where is the people though? What happened to the population of Somalis? Where is their dignity? Where is their tenacity they used to have? Especially when a community do not have a leadership anymore, and they do not have a leader. Unfortunately, that's what they become.
Their leader was just killed.
Absolutely.
And she was...
And even some of them, even the local spokesperson, he was trying to downplay. You know what he says? There is just a little problem that happened at the airport.
Your congressperson, your leader of
she was representing them,
is just killed, and it's like, well, you know, there's a tragedy happened. We're just nothing to see here.
That's what he says. Just try to downplay because they don't want to upset their boss. Abiy. They don't want to see. They don't want to tell the truth, but who is going to force them to create an independent commission to investigate this crime?
One of the things that I've learned, Mohammed, is that, well, of course, anyone who's done a little study of political science and understands the nation state in the separation between a state that has its sovereignty, et cetera, and that's kind of the veil, in other words, why the other states who recognize each other will not come in and participate in ending, you know, widespread starvation, you know what I mean, systemic rape, an entire portion of a country in blackout. Everybody says, well, we can't do anything because it's like state rights, it's sovereignty and all those different things. And we can't say genocide, because if we say genocide, that means that we're going to open up a responsibility to do something. Ooh. And now when you think about what's happening inside of Ethiopia, you have a parliamentary member who's shot by a federal police officer, and this parliamentary member is a part of Abiy Ahmed's government, that's telling you that if you think this is just about the Tigray, it is about the Oromo, the Somali, it's about everyone. There is a total disregard for life inside of that country.
They have no respect of human sanctity. They don't care. Look at it even now. They are telling us in Ukraine, oh, Iran is giving them this, it is giving Russia the drone, and they're helping the Russian this and that, and Russia is destroying Ukraine. But what are they telling us, especially the West, the politician and the media? Are they telling us bunch of black people slaughtering themselves? It's like, what's new? Is that what they're telling us? They don't care?
They don't, but remember the work that
But
you
what
and
can
I,
we do?
Well, you and I and Ndele and a whole bunch of others, I'm talking about folks we know, we were strong voices against apartheid.
Yes.
You know,
I remember.
we've been, of course, a part of Black Lives Matter movement.
Yes.
There's been an international outcry as it relates to, you know, what took place with George Floyd and Sandra Bland, and, you know, the names go on and on. There is an outcry with the Tigray, but it's largely the Tigray voices, and there are other great humanitarians that are calling in, and they're standing firm. This is a Muslim woman.
Exactly.
This is a Muslim woman, 1 billion Muslims around the world. And I guarantee you when it comes around time for Ramadan, they're going to have all these sheikhs going, all these different mosques saying we need to get money for this place and we need to get money for this place. And they're going to talk about dawah. But when a black woman is murdered or killed, I want to know, okay, maybe the Somali inside.
What about if she was a white woman traveling in Jigjiga and she's been gunned down by this guy? What do you think will happen?
What if she was in Iran right now and she was a woman that was killed by the police and there's an entire movement right now?
Yes, everybody would have talked about it.
So why is there no move? I haven't seen or heard the outcry. You know, and even you talked about the Somali leaders like, nothing really here to see here. Where is the outcry? I'm talking about the global outcry from the communities of faith as it relates to genocide and the death of someone in the Ummah.
Absolutely. Well, personally, to be honest with you, growing up, I thought the old folks were a lot more courageous, a lot more dignified people. They never tolerate this, even though the Ethiopian central government always hated the Somalis. The reason they hated because they did not tolerate even killing their own female. It was unheard for. But today, this to me personally, I think this is a sign. This is something telling the Somali man and the Muslim man, as you said, what can you do about it? That's what Abiy, the message that he's sending.
Well, you know, it's really interesting when you think about this. You would think that there would be a global outcry. I guarantee you if one of our senators was shot in the airport, the world would stop for a moment.
Yes.
And there seems to be this level of lawlessness, just disregard for life across the board that maybe the world is saying, well, that's just how they act. And we don't care about them, first of all, but there's something about those folks that they don't care about each other because the hatred is so intense. I have never seen folks that hate each other so much. I started looking at it with this genocide, but now you can look at the comments, you can travel in the country, you will see individuals who say, I can't go here, I can't go here, I can't touch this.
It's been always that way in Ethiopia because it's been created that way because, as you said, some of them, they will tell you, oh, Ethiopia has never been colonized. Oh, come on. But Ethiopia has always been marginalized. And there was always made them hate each other, the different ethnic. They would never, even it's worse now. They cannot even travel. Oh yeah, you cannot even, he himself cannot even go, Abiy cannot even take a car and go to outside of Addis. He's going to be gunned down. That's what he created. But he created that. Was much better before him. There was no people killed because at least the government previously, the TPLF, There was not random killing by by everybody. No, as it is now, there is a war everywhere. And within 2 years, this guy, he helped kill 10,000 Somalis. Nobody's talking about it. And now the Eritrea, another country, another military, he allowed attacking a community, the Tigray, plus the Ethiopian army, plus the Fano. For what? Is this a war? Then they're talking about they're having a meeting or they're having a peace meeting in South Africa. Why do they not at least order them to stop, the killing first? Then we talk.
Well, before we even get into that, because I really want to talk about what's happening in South Africa, and as I understand it, the so-called Ethiopian representative showed up late. Like they were supposed to be there Monday. They acted as if they weren't going to participate, and then the International Monetary Fund and the big stick said, "You will get to this table.
Otherwise, you aren't going to get a penny."
And you can run around with China and Russia all you want. However, we do know that Europeans run African nations. And now the Chinese have a stronghold in Africa. African people have not been in control of Africa since the scramble for Africa. And so now the Ethiopian leaders finally made their way to the peace talks late. Remember, early on, they walked away from the beginning. Like at the beginning of this genocide, they had an opportunity to come together and have a conversation. And because you have Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed working with I call them the Shuan elites, This goes back to Shua.
Showa, yes.
Shua, Finfini. I get it. This is all about imperialism, and the North was never supposed to, be in control of the southern spoils, where Menelik murdered over 10 million individuals with Haile Selassie's dad by the name of Makanen. Like, we're not supposed to know all of this, but it is very true.
Yes.
But now they're having these so-called peace talks, and it's not because Abiy Ahmed, whom nobody knows. First, remember they said he was Oromo? Then the Oromo said, nah, he's not Oromo, because the first thing he did was bomb the Oromo.
Yes.
He imprisoned them, and he killed the entertainers and locked up Juweria, Muhammad, and all those. Yes. So the Oromo were like, nah, he's not Oromo. And then all of a sudden, the Orthodox Christians, the Tawahu, it's called the Tawaldu, or in Islam they call it Tawhid, but it's Tawhado, Orthodox Christianity. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is killing Orthodox Christians, and he's a Protestant.
Is he a Protestant?
Or Abiy Ahmed is not an Orthodox Christian.
I think I heard. I don't know if this is what they call. They call it. I think it's part of the Protestant. It was invented or created by a Swedish man.
Exactly. When I was the Pentecostal or all of those splintered fringe groups that were penetrating Ethiopia, and Tedros threw them out, and everybody threw them out, and now all of a sudden they're in there. It's really interesting to see how even the Christian community and the Muslim community inside of Ethiopia and outside the world are silent as people of faith are being annihilated.
Yes.
I can't explain it. Explain it.
Yes, it was always been that way, especially even at this time. This guy, he started early. He started early his killing. Previous regime, I would say Haile Selassie or Menelik or even Mengistu, it took them at least some years to start killing their people. But this guy, he started right away.
He started immediately.
He started immediately, slaughtering people.
Who does he work for? Because it's obviously not the people. Who does Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed work for? And why does the world allow for a foreign nation, Eritrea, to be inside of the sovereign?
Yes. Well, I heard that first he was handpicked at the beginning. He was not elected. He was not chosen. He was handpicked, one of the Western embassy in Addis Ababa. And I remember reading the former and they used to call it the African man. His name is Jacques Foccart, was a French advisor of African affairs for de Gaulle all the way to the President Giscard d'Estaing. That guy, I read his memoir. He said, anytime we wanted to create, he was basically a kingmaker, to create another dictator that we could use, we already had, we already created a network. We know already who is in who, to the lowest rank and to the highest rank. And we studied them psychologically. We studied them what they like, who they are. Especially, he talked about it, the former president of Gabon, Omar Bongo. He says that guy loved luxury. He loved European or French culture and music.
That's
and
the same thing that happened with that happened with Haile Selassie's dad,
Ras McConnell, yes.
Ras McConnell. They all fell in love. Remember, after the Battle of Adwa, which Adwa is in Tigray, by the way.
Yes.
After the Battle of Adwa, the European nations considered Haile Selassie and others not African and not black, because that would undermine the issue of white supremacy. You couldn't say that an African nation defended. You couldn't know. They just couldn't reconcile the fact that an African nation defeated soundly a European power. So they upgraded them from being black. And
Well,
but with that, the point I'm making is
I think it was a trick.
It was a trick. Ras
It was a
McConnell,
trick.
all of them were given a tour of Europe. This is
Yes.
when they first started touring Europe,
Yes.
and they discovered exactly what you just said. They fell in love with the European way of life.
Absolutely, yes. And that was always the trick. And they make them think you are all that, and you think and you are intelligent, and
you're
they
one
give
of
you-
us, and you're not one of
us,
them,
and
you need to civilize them for us.
exactly. Even Haile Selassie never hid it. And when European dignitary visit him, he will say, "Oh, I'm in a process of civilizing them," and then showing them a picture of an other ethnic, their way of life, or the way they dress and what have you. So he will send them take a picture like they were some sort of a wild animal.
But there's a bottom line. If anybody just cared to look a little peek behind the veil, the Europeans did not consider, particularly the British, did not consider the Italians and others white people.
Yeah, even the
Remember-
Russians.
Remember,
even the Russians,
they
never
had
considered.
colonized. They had colonized Europeans and called them savages. For example, the British considered the South Africans, the Boers, etc.
Yeah.
They weren't white enough. They needed to be civilized.
Yes.
The Italians, they weren't white enough.
They Slavic.
needed to be civilized.
the Slavic
And
people.
so today they upgraded all of those folks into the whiteness in the same way that Haile Selassie and those dictators were upgraded into whiteness as well.
Absolutely, yes. That's a very interesting point. But what I'm really concerned at this point is Eritrea, another country who said, look, we want an independent. Fine. But came back sending his army with the blessing of Abiy, attacking Ethiopian citizens, if we like to say that, and nobody said anything.
That's the level of hatred.
Exactly.
You would not be able, like, if you're
Would
watching.
they allow if how would I say, Belarus, if they join Russian to invade Ukraine, would they allow that? Do you think they will
No.
be? They will
The
be
problem
quiet?
that Ethiopia has is there's no real such thing as an Ethiopian nation. There's a
Exactly.
state.
It's a prefabricated.
There's a state in terms of a state. A state means that you're recognized by other states inside of the international community. You have that, okay?
Yes.
Menelik gave them the boundaries, drew up the boundaries, and partnered with the Europeans. He was a black Italian. But as it relates to a nation, that which would bring you together, your common nation, your common history, your common past, you know, your willingness to die and defend one another based on this ideal of nationhood. Ethiopia has no nationhood because you can see even when a foreign nation came into their nation, many of them are celebrating the fact that a foreign nation is inside of Ethiopia attacking their very own so-called countrymen and women.
You know what Abiy said? He said, well, the Tigray are a cancer in Ethiopia and we need to get rid of them. And even he was, I think, interviewed by the Federalist, the New Federal, the New Yorker. Mm-hmm. The New Yorker, he was interviewed by in New Yorker. This guy, you know how silly he is. Even the reporter of New Yorker was making fun of him. He was showing us his article. He was showing us that that's how he was buffoon. You know, he says, "I love America so much that I'm willing to die for America."
Well, what does that say?
What does that say?
It says that I don't mind you killing my people. Let's go back quickly to your Somali your Somali parliament member.
Yeah.
Her name is
Juweria.
Juweria.
Juweria, yes.
Juweria. She's just gunned down over a couple of days ago. So it hasn't been 24 hours.
Not yet.
No world outcry.
No
anything.
No.
And now you have individuals saying they're going somewhere to talk about peace. Those folks don't know what peace is.
They don't care. For them, it's just a lip service. And as you said, they were forced, they were pressured to go there. But guess what? They came late. And there won't be any solution because you know what? In advance, even he says there won't be a peace, any peace whatsoever, according to Abiy. He says, unless the TDF disarm.
So,
look
in other words,
side.
he believes that he is able to achieve what has happened in the state of Somalia. In other words, Amhara troops, Amhara administrators being paramount inside of their region. He believes that the Tagaru, who have now become even more secure in their own particular identity, he believes that there's going to be some others that will come in and run Tigray.
Yeah.
When, if you look at history, no one has ever been able to do that.
I was criticized by some friends recently. They told me, well, why are you supporting Tigray? Don't you forget the previous regime? I said, listen, if Abiy managed to get rid of, let's say, hypothetically, is this what you want, you guys? If he defeat them, I don't think there's any defeat, but there is a massacre there. There is a genocide there. If he does that, you are next. That's what I told them.
And they are next.
You are next.
Like, for example, for the same individual who said, why are you standing? Okay, Muhammad Adwali, why are you standing with Tigray, and why are you a humanitarian or whatever? Why do you have warm blood going through your body?
Yeah.
Those same individuals, I bet you they're just as quiet when their Somali sister was just murdered.
Yes, they will not say anything. Even they will try to play around like they just did it. Some of them just started saying, oh, there is a shooting. What are we talking about? Shooting? She was gunned down in the middle of the airport from her. The guy, he aimed at her. That was an execution style.
He didn't see an Ethiopian. He saw a Somalian.
Thank you. But do the Somalis, especially who are in Jigjiga today, who are in Juweria today, who are in many other cities, do they look at it that way? Maybe some of them do. But what are they going to do about it? Are they going to rise up tomorrow? liberate themselves from the yoke of Amhara and Naftanya? And I will say that I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, because it's run, the whole airport. It's run. Let me tell you this. Recently, I think about a year ago, there was a Somali diaspora. He is from Jigjiga. He went back to Jigjiga. He went outside of Jigjiga. He bought a land, and he started farming vegetable. He wanted to bring to the market of Jigjiga to sell it. Guess what? The Amhara businessman and woman told him, no, you can't do that. And he was shocked. He said, am I in Bahardar? Am I in Amhara state? And they told, no, you can't sell it. It's in the YouTube. Every Somalis who saw that, they know what I'm talking about.
Well, when you think about this, and we're going to wrap it up, because today we are really focusing on the fact that less than 24 hours ago, yes. I want you to wrap your mind around this. Wherever you're at in these United States of America, your senator was just shot dead by a police officer inside of the airport, a federal officer that has his gun. Your leadership was just shot down, and there's not so much as a bleep on the world stage. Like, if that doesn't show that there's a disregard, and for those who are saying, well, I'm with the Prosperity Party, like, how ridiculous is it for you to have a constitution and then you come into power through a democratic process and then you create a party? Like you created when you got there, and now you have individuals inside of your government, and even they are not safe.
And inside is the party that he created.
Even they're not safe.
They're not safe. And guess what? Now, I'm sure that he's gonna say because I heard that he watched too much TV. He loves. I heard that watching. I don't want to name any network name, but he watch American TV and European TV. He loves movies, action movie. I heard. I was doing my own research about this guy, because every dictator, we need to study their mindset. That's the only way we could prevent them. Guess what? He may say later on, "Oh, the guy is crazy." Watch that.
Well, I can tell you at some point he's going to make his way to the International Criminal Court, whether it's posthumously or, presently, because a crime is yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And those who are responsible for orchestrating, because genocides just don't begin. They are planned, they are executed, and we are in the midst of 721 days of genocide. And we're seeing all over the country, there's a disregard for human life. And when even those in the highest positions of government are able to be gunned down, and there's not as much as a bleep, then you can only imagine what's happening with individuals who are not parliamentary members. They are being detained. They are being murdered. There's mass graves, while the citizenry is saying, hooray.
Well, you see, recently, this is what happened. Probably this is what the West, they don't really, they don't care, or they pretend that they don't know anything what's going on over there. There was a Chinese company exploring, or at least for the Somali gas, the gas in Somali region. They revoke the contract of the Chinese company and give to American company. Does that say something?
Well, I mean, you're starting to see the fact that most of Ethiopia is being privatized. Your communication sector. I've been in Kenya.
Privatized
I've been amongst the Rift Valley. Have you heard of Safaricom? Have you been in in Kenya and you see all the green buildings with Safaricom? Well, now you look at Ethiopia with some of the largest populations on the continent, and they're known as markets.
But that's imperialism.
That's imperialism. So what they're saying is, as long as we have access to the market, then we'll let you kill your people who stand in the way of that.
That was always be the policy of imperialists. We could care less about you guys. We are coming to take your companies, take your raw material, take your natural gas, oil, other diamonds, gold. If you're killing yourself, each other.
Here's the question I need to ask you. When are black folks going to wake up?
I was listening, before I answered this, I was listening a sheikh called Sheikh Imran Hussein. He's from Trinidad. So it's I mean, one of the courageous, Islamic scholar. You know what he says? We are at the end of the end of the world. Okay, but are we going to see black folks rising up, at least standing up for themselves, or are we going to really die at the end of the world, and probably we may need a second chance at the life hereafter?
Well, what about
maybe we may be free there in Jannah?
I don't know, because I'm really concerned about the people of faith. Ethiopia is full of faith. I've seen mezcal, I've seen Eid celebrations, I've seen traditional gatherings, etc. But there's a very interesting dynamic when you let evil manifest right in your midst. Like, there's a genocide taking place and Muslims are being killed, Christians are being killed, traditional religions are being killed, the animals are being killed, the trees are being burnt down.
Water being polluted.
Water is being polluted. Like, in the midst of all of this worship, you've got Satan himself right there, just terrorizing everything. And the folks are so full of hate that I'm telling you, Muhammad, I saw individuals being burnt alive. Yes. And that wasn't enough for our good, faith, religious, loving folks. And Ethiopia got more crosses than you can imagine. You go to a different region, you're going to see a different cross. I've seen them all. They got Maz. I done heard the Adon. You can go travel. You can go all that religion. I've been to Harar. They got 5 gates for all the 5 pillars. And right now, it is so quiet. You can hear a rat pee on cotton as it relates to genocide.
And guess what? These religious guys, they talk about the life hereafter. Because I was listening the other day, one Djiboutian sheikh, the dictator in Djibouti, he's scared of him. He's not talking about what he's doing, which is not righteous, which is wrong. But the guy is telling people, he's talking about akhirah, the hereafter, the life hereafter. But why, I will say, why this guy is not talking about what's going on now? That's exactly what it is in Ethiopia now. These religious guys that will come over there, try to, sometimes I wonder, is this become a business? A way to influence the masses so that you could collect money?
Well, let me just ask this. To me, I've come to the conclusion, and by the way, it's 721 days of genocide. A Somali parliament member was just shot dead in her regional airport.
Jigjiga.
Shot dead, and
even others were killed along with her.
It's amazing. Today, I think that what you call Ethiopia, and I guarantee you the Tigray do not consider themselves Ethiopian anymore. They did, but they do not.
I don't blame them.
And I wouldn't blame them one bit.
I wouldn't blame them.
It's very interesting. I talked about the silence of the Muslims, the silence of the Christians. This genocide is based on systemic rape. Yes. And now you just had a Muslim woman gunned down. Where's those international women organizations where there's systemic rape taking place?
Oh, that's
where are they at? Like, where are they saying, hold up a second, the women are being raped? Well, like, I'm looking for them. I'm like, where
are the Me Too movement?
Where are the folks that are saying, you know what, I'm so far, a woman's right to choose, and where are all of those activists where you've got items being placed inside of women's bodies, foreign objects? Like, you're going to tell me nobody sees nothing, nobody cares?
Maybe they are black folks. Maybe that's why we don't matter.
Well, that's what the head of the World Health Organization said. He said, in Tigray right now, it's the worst humanitarian crisis on the planet. And most folks don't know. And
he has a platform, and nobody's listening to him.
Now, just imagine, right now, I just want to talk to the Somali community. Not even the Muslim community.
Yes.
A Somali woman was just gunned down in the airport. I'm right here in these United States of America. Tell me where the protest's going to be tomorrow. I'll show up with the camera. I'll document it. I'll be there. I'll follow it just like I follow this Tigray dynamic. Show me where they're at, and I'll be there.
Well, I will encourage them to less organize, but I hope they will call me. I know some of them will watch. Anyone, I will send them, this program, hopefully. But this is the important something that I want to talk about. There will be an election November 8th. We were talking about. I was talking to some community leaders. What is your plan? I was asking them, what's your plan? Because I just came back to Denver. I said, what is your plan? I mean, how are you organizing the community? Not only the Somalis, the Muslim community. I spoke to Ethiopian communities. What are you guys plan? How are we going to encourage to vote? Because this is a very important election. This is a parliament. If we use it as like a universal terminology, this is an election parliament in the United States, the Congress. How are we going to vote? Are we going to encourage our people to vote? But to vote who? How are we going to influence the Congress so that this genocide been stopped?
Well, the Western world has already proven they don't care. As long as they get access, as long as they get what they need, the people, it doesn't matter. When is it, like, for example, you have the Ethiopian community in the diaspora. They're quiet. I seen them do a no more rally. They're like, no more, leave us alone and let us kill our people because we've got our grievances and we don't care. Just leave us alone, stay out of our business. Like, there are enough individuals in the diaspora from Ethiopia and they know all of these dynamics and everybody's standing alone.
Well, one of them, even the other day, was telling me, what is wrong with inviting the Eritrean to help us get rid of the Tigray? I said, excuse me? Are you too weak even to yourself fight with them? Why are you calling them? Why are you asking Eritrea to help you?
Well, I could tell you right now, as for the Tigray, there's going to be a global protest. This is almost 2 years of genocide that's taking place. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be meeting in Washington, D.C. November 4th through the 6th. It would be great for all good humanitarians of anywhere and anybody to show up, because right now everybody that was silent in the midst of the Tigray genocide. Well, now your Somali leaders are being gunned down. Everybody who's silent about one thing, then it's going to happen to you. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, in conjunction with Prime Minister Isaias Afwerki, one half of that devilish duo got a Nobel Peace Prize, and nobody seems to care about the human suffering and the human life. I don't think the planet is that terrified of somebody nobody knows where he came from. I think it's time for good people to stand up and say, stop the genocide. If it's happening right here, it's going to be happening right there. And I want to give you the final words, Mohammed. Thank you for giving us the update. But would you summarize again what took place in the past 24 hours as it relates to the Somali parliament member and your analysis and what you've heard based on all of the research you've been doing over the past 24 hours?
First of all, I would like to pray for her that Allah will give her or bestow her to the eternal paradise, because she was killed, assassinated by a so-called federal police of Ethiopia. Some people would like to make us think this is an isolated incident, which I don't believe so, due to my research, as you said. But she was killed along with others. Some of the women are critically wounded as we speak. So that was something that I thought it would not happen inside the airport. But when I make a little bit of research, as I said numerous times, even the entire airport of Jigjiga, the Somali state, is run by Amharas, and this guy, he was immediately took away by them, claiming that, and one of them even want to make us think that he was under arrest. Maybe they may going to change one Tigray and will tell us this was this guy. But I don't trust personally Abiy and his government, or anybody who really in his government who will tell us anything, because they will lie. We already know what's going on in Ethiopia today, in Tigray, in Somali region. They have no respect to human sanctity. Look at it. She's a young woman. She was a young woman. She had a bright future. She was representing her community, and she was sitting in the parliament of Addis Ababa, the capital city of Ethiopia. And they don't have a protection. That's sad. So what is next, Ethiopia? I think I encourage the Somalis inside of the country as well as diaspora to do something about it. There are thousands and thousands of Somalis in Minnesota. I hope they will do something about it.
So we should expect to see, we should put our eye on Minnesota and see what happens, because if they haven't done anything right now, you're telling me that something should be taking place. As a matter of fact, I believe there's a Somali congresswoman in Minnesota.
Ilhan Omar. Well, lately it seems that she's becoming more and more part of the establishment, obviously, and I don't know.
Did she send a tweet?
I haven't seen it. I tweeted a lot, so I haven't seen it.
In Minnesota, there is a Muslim Somali,
huge Muslim Somali community,
but there so much so that they elected a Muslim Somali congresswoman,
and even the local even stay there. Some of them now. Yeah, not only Ilhan.
You haven't heard anything from her? You haven't?
So far, not. I'm going to keep an eye on her and others. I'm going to be watching tonight and tomorrow and see what happens. But I will encourage them, even here in Denver, the Somalis, to at least to voice their opinion, to stand up for themselves. Because if we get silent on this, guess what? There was a former minister, a young Somali, her name is Filsan Abdi. She was a minister of women and children. When she resigned, she feared for her life and she ran away the country. I was just reading one article she did, an interview in the New York Times. There was another young lady who was in a parliament when Abiy was president. She challenged him the genocide and the massacre of Somalis because he armed the Afars to massacre the Somalis. She challenged him, what are you going to do about it? These people have been displaced. Their town has been burned down. Some of them, thousands of them were killed. And their family, they have no home to go. They are homeless, literally homeless in their own country. So he didn't say anything.
Is the climate so bad, like the terrorism so deep and so intense that individuals, like we've got many reports with these extrajudiciary murders, like folks just being gunned down. What you saw in the airport is what happens in the streets. It happens around the corner. It happens over here. Like,
yeah.
And it happens
but
to
mass killing.
Mass killings, like that's the way of the culture right now, the nation right now. What do you think will be the end results of these peace talks in South Africa? And can you talk a little bit about your thoughts about what's taking place in South Africa right now, and how does all this madness end?
Well, I don't think that he wanted to go there. Even Ethiopian, and as you said, they were late. But they were pressured by, IMF, as you said, because they came here one of his minister.
They're about to go. They're about to default on all their loans. Like they're buying all of your economy is being funneled in the way of purchasing drones and weaponry. And all of that.
Absolutely, because he's dumb enough that if he didn't know when he was starting the war, and now he realized there is nothing. Even he's asking Ethiopian to bring their gold.
Can he pay the soldiers? Can he pay? Who's going to pay
No,
the Eritrean troops and the soldiers and all that?
Eritrean troops will never go back.
They'll never leave.
They will never leave, because they thousands of them even themselves they died over there. So Isaias will say, hey, "Oh well, I will take this portion of Ethiopia."
It's a Trojan horse effect. In other words,
Absolutely.
They have opened up the door for the historical enmity to come into the country, and it's not leaving.
Yes, but because he's inexperienced, Abi, he's not fit to govern. He has no experience of running a company, let alone running Ethiopia. Because before that, he was nothing but a listener of. His job was he liked to think that with the article of New Yorker, he was talking about how he was cyber counterintelligence, all that. No, he was just monitoring the Ethiopian citizen who were probably saying something or something. That was his job. But he never held any office. That shows you how the Europeans they take it, or the Western government in general, they make fun of us. They will elevate or privatize with a dumb guy as it is, and guess what? That's the result. That's the aftermath.
Well, I could tell you, it's so like, please keep us posted. I'd like for you to give me the information in terms of what's happening with the Somali community, if they are going to be actualized and mobilized in the same way that the young lady was murdered in Iran. There's an entire movement that has sprung up based on the murder by the morality police in Iran.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering, we're 721 days into a genocide in Tigray, and the Tigray have been mobilized every day for 721 days. They're hitting the halls of Congress. They've been at the UN every single day. They're up and down the streets. They're in airports. There's everywhere. They are fighting because they know if they don't, their lives are on the line. I want to know if the Somali are going to rise up, and I'm telling you, the same thing that is happening with the Tigray right now, while everyone is silent, is starting here, and it's there, and it's always been with the Oromo. It's just growing, and I don't know when people are going to wake up and see it.
A few days ago, he bombed Oromo. He used a drone to bomb Oromo civilians. You haven't seen that? Yeah,
I can only imagine.
There was a dead bodies. I think I might send you. He used a drone to bomb them.
This is what's happening in Ethiopia right now.
In Ethiopia,
and the world needs to see it. 721 days of genocide. Thank you, Mohammed. Keep us updated.
I will.
So that we can not only keep our eye on Tigray, but what's happening as humanitarians. Anytime you're quiet in the midst of systemic rape and starvation and mass displacement, and the human rights organizations are saying we can't get in, and everybody's saying, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. It's because humanity needs to have a heart transplant if we allow these things to take place. Stop the genocide in Tigray. Rest in peace, Juweria. Rest in peace. No one should be shot in the head just because they're traveling. And she's one we know of. You said there were others that were hit also.
Yes.
Wow. There we have it. The legacy of a Nobel Peace Prize laureate.
That's a shame.
If this is the behavior of a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, we ought to be saying, oh my Lord. If this is a laureate, we need to say, oh my Lord.
Stop the war!